All right, welcome APUSH students to your Unit 7 study guide. This is your last unit test that you'll take. Only 30 questions here, and let's get into it. Okay, so first up, let's talk just a little bit about the liberal rights revolutions. Um, Really, this is going to be something from the 60s on up, and it's going to be very broad. The rights revolution is going to affect race, obviously, with the civil rights movement of the 1960s and the passage of the Civil Rights Act. Uh, you're also going to see a revolution in how families live, just mom, dad, and the kids. You'll see that changing. Gender roles, you're going to see this movement. Women are trying to get out of being trapped in the home, the old 1950s stay at home, leave it to Beaver style. And sexual morality is going to change as well. It's going to be a lot looser society once you get into the 60s and 70s. Um, People basically responding to the conformity of the 1950s and the expectations of the of the 1950s. There are a lot of problems in the 1970s that Americans face. I think probably the one the best is the economic crisis, but I mean, you've got cultural dislocation going on. You've got all these very rapid social changes, gay rights. That's a major change. And Roe versus Wade, that's a major change. You have all this stuff going on. You have people flocking to different parties in the 1970s. More Christians are going to start moving towards the right in what will become the new right. U.S. economy in the 1970s suffered from just about everything. High unemployment in this time period, inflation. Of course, we know that is stagflation. You got all this foreign competition now because Germany has been rebuilt and Japan has been rebuilt. You have the issue of the United States economy trying to find its way through deindustrialization. We've been an industrial society for so long, and now we'd moved to the service economy. So that's something that Americans are dealing with as well in the 1970s. And when we talk about the OPEC oil embargo, there's things that America is going to try to do in response, but really the first one that they try to do is limit the speed limit. Limit the speed that our cars are traveling. That's where we're going to get our 55 mile an hour speed limit, supposedly a more efficient driving speed, and that's going to be our first line of defense, really, against the oil shortage in the time period. Nixon, obviously a complicated president with a lot going on with him. You've got his foreign policies in Vietnam, which that he moves us towards Vietnamization, where the Vietnamese will be responsible for fighting the war as we slowly withdraw troops. That's something he promised on his campaign trail. We know that Nixon had better relations with China, and he was a big reason for détente, a lessening of Cold War tensions with the Soviet Union. Domestically speaking, probably Nixon's best success was his the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. And he has bipartisan support on that. Both Democrats and Republicans will support him in the EPA. So it's probably his best accomplishment there. And still staying really in the troubled 70s, we get the 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor shut down in 1979. That is going to really move America away from nuclear power. It was an area that we were exploring in as a energy alternative, but after the 3 Mile Island incident in Pennsylvania, we will be moving away. There are no more new reactors built in America after that time period. There's domestic migrations going on in this time period. The Sun Belt is going to grow in this time period for many reasons. Remember, we're deindustrializing, so there are a lot of people who lost their jobs in the Rust Belt, and so they moved to the South searching for new jobs. And there were some jobs to be had in the South because this is where some of the defense industries have been moved. More military bases were being built in the South because of the better weather as far as the summer went. You had the space program going on in the South. so you had some reasons that could get people down here. All right, President Ford. Remember, he's never elected president of the United States. Actually, his terms in office will only be because Nixon has to resign, and Ford ends up pardoning Nixon, something that he was criticized heavily for. His excuse for that was he just wanted America to be able to move on, and thought that rather than it being in the news and occupying our attention, that this would be an easier way to just kind of move on with the issue. President Carter who follows in after Gerald Ford, was not a very effective president. He too was a one-term president. He was governor from Georgia, and he's struggling to deal with an energy crisis of the 1970s that he compares to a moral equivalent of war. He thinks it's that serious, and he just really doesn't have any answers, and really it dooms his presidency. 70s also got a lot more interesting stuff going on, like with Roe versus Wade, very important court case that decriminalizes abortion due to the right of privacy of the mother. That the mother has that she has a right to privacy, and that it's no one's business that she is essentially pregnant. So, in all intents and purposes, it's going to allow for early term abortion. We get a sexual revolution in the 1960s and 70s, and there are a lot of different reasons that occurs. You have a rise in feminism in the 60s and 70s. You have, of course, the counterculture reaction to the 1950s and their moralness of the 1950s. You get this more loose society with the counterculture. The birth control pill that comes out in 1960 sparks this sexual revolution as well, where women can have sex without the fear of being pregnant. You also saw a lot more sex in books and movies too, that kind of opened people's eyes to sex and changed people's views on sex during this time period. You get the new right. You need to make sure that you understand what the new right is. That's kind of emerging in the late 70s and into the 80s, of course. You really need to know what their platform is. And remember that they're a Republican platform that, they're for deregulation. They want less regulations on businesses because they think that it will help the economy. They're looking for lower taxes on the businesses because, they think it's going to spark investment and whatnot. The New Right also has two other very important factors, and that's that it's a Christian moral group. A big part of the New Right was these far-right Christians. And, of course, the New Right they are tired of the détente period of the 1970s under Nixon, and they are ready to smash communism. So a much more fierce Cold War policy out of the New Right. Now, the New Right comes in 1980 with the election of Ronald Reagan, of course. Why is Reagan elected? Well, Reagan's elected because he himself is a very charming person who's an excellent speaker, known as the great communicator, of course. The Iranian crisis and how Carter handled that, also got people wanting to move away from the Democrat Party there and go in a different direction. The economics of the 1970s was so poor, and Reagan, of course, had his Reaganomics idea, and people were curious, and maybe that would work. Nothing else had worked, so maybe that would work. And really, you still had these grassroots activism with conservatives towards, making the country more moral after the 60s and 70s, all the sexual revolution, all that stuff, and gay rights and whatnot. So all of that is going to be able to get the New Right into office. When we talk about Reagan, oftentimes we really think about his foreign policy and how he really was a driving force in taking down communism in the Soviet Union and ending the Cold War. But of course, he had domestic programs as well that he had to deal with. I'm sorry. Okay, well, I'll come back to that one in a second. All right, Carter. Back to Carter real quick. Um, his foreign policy, in Carter's foreign policy, was that he was most concerned with human rights. That was the biggest issue with Carter. He was not very successful in his foreign policy, of course, and his human rights stuff. He's going to be more successful after he leaves the office of presidency. But that was the driving force behind his foreign policy was protect the people, protect the rights. Supply side economics. You need to know what that is, and really that it's the idea that tax cuts would lead on the big businesses would lead to more investment, and that somehow magically, I'm not exactly sure how this works, that the government would actually get higher tax revenues by cutting the taxes on the rich. Somehow we would make more money by taxing them less. Um, you know, not all that successful. Now, Reaganomics does shift money, though. It does move money around, sort of like FDR. His programs sort of moved money around as well, the opposite direction, with some of the wealthy getting stung with taxes that are going to go to the poor people. Reaganomics is the opposite. You're going to see money getting moved into the hands of military planners and wealthy Americans, essentially. AIDS, the rise of AIDS happens in the early 80s. This devastating epidemic that sweeps through America that at first they think is just linked to homosexuals, and so nobody cares, and then straight people start getting it, and all of a sudden it's a little bit more important. But it is something that ends up killing more Americans than died in both Korea and the Vietnam War. So it had a major impact on America in the 80s and 90s for sure. As we move into that period of the 80s up into 2000, America is dealing with some fierce foreign competition. Our two biggest competitors in the time period were Germany and Japan, who again we had helped rebuild. And people are buying Japanese TVs and Japanese motorcycles and Japanese cars and German cars, and we've helped rebuild them in our image, and they give us some pretty stiff competition in the time period. Now, Reagan had a lot of foreign policy with Reagan. Some of it was a little on the shady side. We know that the CIA under Reagan was very active in funding anti-communist movements all over the world. I mean, Mozambique, Africa, and of course all through Central America, Angola, Afghanistan, quite a few places that the American CIA is willing to do a lot to see that communism doesn't win. As we go through the 80s and get into the 90s, we get the rise of the European Union. This Commonwealth of Europe, if you will. It's all these countries, and it uses the euro, and the euro is supposed to be a way to compete with the power of America. But the European, it's more of a economic commonwealth. Europe they don't invest much money into military spending, so they're limited on how much weight they carry. Whereas America, the Soviet Union have huge militaries and have huge voices because of them. Now, China, as it also has a big voice, especially as China turns towards capitalism in this time period, which certainly skyrockets their prestige and their wealth. It benefits consumers in America because it provides that we can now buy cheap Chinese goods. Now, there's some negatives to that, of course, as well. But that is the original group that benefits from China moving towards capitalism. During Bill Clinton's administration, we get the NAFTA agreement, which North Atlantic Free Trade Agreement is what it stands for. But for Clinton, he's trying to offset the gains that the European Union has made by its Commonwealth. And so he thinks that a Commonwealth between Canada, America, and Mexico will help give us the edge to make sure we stay on top. But it doesn't work out quite that way. There's some issues there. You'll see under NAFTA, you get these multinational corporations that are just going to outsource jobs to areas with lower labor prices, areas where the minimum wage might be $2 instead of what it was in America. And so they can make more money by, going to a different country, which means, of course, it leads to job losses here in America. Now, Reagan and Clinton they do have some similarities besides the fact that they were both very charismatic. They have some similarities in that there are ups and downs of economic prosperity during their tenures. There are low years, but both of these presidents do see good economics in their both of them were two-term presidents, but during their two terms, they will see economic prosperity for sure. And that's a major link between them. 9/11 changes a lot in America. We, under George W. Bush, we announced the war on terror, and we do a lot. I mean, we destroy the Taliban in Afghanistan. We take out Al-Qaeda. We deny Al-Qaeda a safe haven in Afghanistan, so we're taking them out. We get a lot of Osama bin Laden's guys. We just don't get bin Laden very soon. Remember that it will take about 10 years before we eventually track bin Laden down and bring him to justice by killing him. Now Bush, that's at the beginning of Bush's administration, but his most defining event actually isn't 9/11, which is something that kind of happened to him, but rather something that he does, and that is the Second Iraq War and his invasion of Iraq, which did spark some. Of course, we just didn't care at that point. We were going to get what we wanted to get. Let's see. One little question about Obama. His agenda, basically, in his first year, he's got this federal stimulus package. Even though he said he was going to not escalate military efforts in Afghanistan, he does. He gets new federal laws that regulate Wall Street. He's trying to rein in those guys in Wall Street. And of course, he's most famous for Obamacare, a national healthcare system. Okay, fairly straightforward with this, and hopefully with this information I've provided you here, you will be successful on your very final AP exam. Thanks for listening, guys. Good luck, and I'll see you in class.